Mike. Let's talk about women and general health now. Some recent research suggests that serious conditions might be going undiagnosed in women because they aren't paying attention to their health. In fact, you found that out, didn't you?
So when we were at the British Heart Foundation, we've known for a long time that the outcomes of acute myocardial infarction in women are worse than for men. Lots of reasons for that, but one was that women tend to present later to the doctor with a life-threatening emergency heart attack. And the reasons for that, again, were complicated, but one was that their focus was caring for others and not for themselves. They were focused on childcare, caring for older people, and the other reason was that symptoms tended to be different as well, so they weren't quite as typical. So there are lots of reasons why women were disadvantaged in that regard. In particular, women are being diagnosed with diabetes at a later age because they are focused on other priorities, as you said, such as family, career and household duties. Vanessa Haydock is our special guest now, lives with type 1 diabetes and hosts a podcast about the condition. It's called The Diabetic Health Coach. Vanessa, hello to you.
Hi, Chris.
Welcome along. You with Dr. Mike Napton as well?
Hi, Vanessa. Yeah, hi. Good morning.
Now, there's a survey all about the number of women that don't rank their own health high on their list of priorities. Tell us a bit more about that, Vanessa.
Yeah, so the research conducted by Freestyle Libre suggests that 75% of women, agree that hormones have an impact on overall health, but this is even higher for those living with diabetes, 81%. And again, it kind of shows the research how, us females, we've got a lot to deal with day to day. We're running a household, we're, looking after family, we're trying to have our own careers at the same time. And, sometimes it might be that health just takes that little bit more of a back seat. But for us with diabetes, again, hormonal fluctuations, they do have quite a big impact on how we manage our diabetes as well.
Tell us about your own story, Vanessa. You were diagnosed with type 1 at a very early age.
I was diagnosed when I was 3 years old. And when I was younger, back in the 90s, we didn't have the technology that we've got available now, which makes it so much easier to manage glucose levels and manage diabetes overall. When I was younger, when I was a teenager, I was, quite in denial of my type 1 diabetes, and that made it really difficult to manage the condition, especially as a teenager growing up and wanting to be like her friends, and it was really tough. Luckily, when I was in my early 20s, I managed to access the Abbott Freestyle Libre 2 system, which has completely changed my life overall in terms of managing my glucose levels. But, it's still difficult, but the thing is, all we can do is try our very best.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a son who was diagnosed aged 7 years of age, so I know some of the challenges you're talking about, but one of the great moments was when I was able to introduce him, just in the studio actually one day, to a guest who'd done rather well despite being a type 1 diabetic, and that was Sir Stephen Redgrave, 5 gold medal winning Sir Stephen. And it shows, and you too have got a very active, fit career despite your diabetes, haven't you?
Absolutely. I'm a personal trainer, an online coach, as well as a behaviour analyst as well. So I help people with diabetes like myself to meet those health and fitness goals. And I think it's always been a driver for me to never let my diabetes stop me from living the, healthiest life possible.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? And I think for people who perhaps have just been diagnosed, who are listening now, that story that you've just told me is really hopeful. Basically, these days, modern treatment, notwithstanding some of the hassles that you have to put up with on a daily basis, should not stop you from living a full life like anyone else. And as you say, the new technology, moving towards artificial pancreas, not having to do daily blood tests with a needle, but having monitoring, I think that's what you were talking about earlier, makes the impact of diabetes on your life minimal. Would that be right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the technology available now is fantastic. I mean, the Freestyle Libre 2 system that I use, it's a little sensor that goes onto my arm, and I'm able to view my glucose levels there in front of my eyes on an app. And back in the 90s, we didn't have anything like that. We had to use a glucose meter, draw blood from our finger, 4 times a day, and that was the only data that we had available back then.
Absolutely, and I think for teenagers, as you were saying, that discipline of having to do daily blood tests and then twice daily or more often insulin injections is really difficult, and I think this helps teenagers enormously.
Can I talk about the bigger issue for many people, Vanessa? And it's fantastic, as you've said, the advances in the treatment of diabetes are extraordinary. Certainly in terms of testing and so on, and maybe they will find a cure. Who knows? But the whole issue of women not ranking their own health high on their list of priorities seems, quite surprising in the world that we're in today. What might change that, Vanessa?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where, especially with, myself working with so many women with diabetes, and it's like I mentioned before, we're so busy, we're having to juggle so much day to day. And then, on top of that, if we do have diabetes, it's also another full-time job on top as well to try and juggle. I think, to be honest, sometimes it's that understanding of the research and hearing that research. Sometimes it is quite eye-opening, because even with myself, when I read the research, I kind of realised, actually, no, I can understand this a little bit more. And I think it's allowing us to be able to, open up to others about, how we're feeling or anything that we're struggling with. Because, it's like I say, we do juggle so much.
Well, here's the thing, Mike. In the survey, generational difficulties definitely played a part. Women over 65, 39%, so 4 in 10, felt uncomfortable talking about their health. But if we looked at the 18th to 24 age group, 90% of young women were uncomfortable talking about their health. Now, do you remember that from your days as a GP? Would you see a woman GP?
So the statistics are really interesting. Sitting at the other side of the table as a GP, to be honest, you don't see the people who don't come.
Of course, yes.
So I wasn't so aware of that, but it is extraordinary to hear that people are holding back from coming to the doctor, and early diagnosis is really important.
Almost from embarrassment, aren't we saying, Vanessa?
Yeah.
So the sorts of things I heard in the surgery were, despite people talking about time wasters, which I rarely saw, actually what's a bigger problem is people not wanting to make a fuss, not wanting to be embarrassed when they turn up and say, are fearful that they're going to be told, well, actually, this isn't a big problem. That is absolutely fine. If people are worried about their health, a quick consultation and you're told that actually you're okay is as therapeutic as someone coming in and saying, actually, you've got diabetes or something else. So I think that the bigger problem for health in this country is people not wanting to make a fuss, overreacting, crying wolf, all of those sort of things which people worry about.
Vanessa, you agree?
Yeah, I think it's one of those where I think as women as well, where in a lot of cases we might just power through or think, we'll be fine, and when really it's so important for us to seek that medical attention if needed, especially when we're having to manage diabetes at the same time.
Vanessa, thank you so much for being our guest. Vanessa Haydock, and her podcast is called The Diabetic.